Hi, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties. This is Adina with atheistinrecovery.com, and we're here with Michael Spencer from Let's Purify Holistic Decluttering.
Hey everybody, I don't know if you can see and hear me yet.
It has been a wild ride these last 10 minutes.
That's for sure.
All right, so I am going to pull up some of the questions while I also have you on live. Let's see. Michael, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you. Now I'm looking at the Facebook page and I don't see it coming up as live yet. Are you seeing it?
I. That's a great question.
We're so close.
We are so close. And if nothing else happens, this is. Oh, yeah, I see us.
Now, are you on Atheist in Recovery podcast or are you in the group?
I am on Atheists in Recovery podcast.
That's crazy. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I tried doing it just for the group, but we could talk about the technical issues
Oh,
further
I
after
see.
this.
All right,
Can you
here
see?
we are. I see it. I see it. Good.
Okay, can you see you as well?
Let's see. I see me as well.
You do see
No,
you?
you.
Great. What about now? No, I don't see you. Well, that's fun.
No. Do you need to hit that interview thing over in the upper left-hand corner?
Yeah, it's it's been hit. Okay. So, I don't know why we can't see you. And now I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but really light. Tell me what you ate for breakfast.
I had a smoothie
Mm-hmm.
and it was delicious. And then I just had a banana.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah.
This is annoying that I can't bring you up.
I don't know what's happening. I can see me on Skype.
Okay. Hmm. Well, I wonder if your audio is coming through.
I could hear it whenever I was on the Facebook page. I closed it out because there's a little delay and I was getting some feedback, but I could hear myself. I just could see you, but I couldn't see me.
Okay. All right. Well, do you want to just continue with the questions?
I do. I do.
And we'll be so much more prepared for the next time that we do this,
Absolutely.
if we ever do this again. All right. So you're coming on today to talk to us about how to declutter your recovery. And we wanted to get some questions from the group. And I just need to log in and get those questions. Actually, I could do it quicker on my phone.
Nice. Yeah, and I can just share a little bit about myself. I'm Michael Spencer, and as Adina said, I'm from Let's Purify Holistic Declutter Coaching, and I help people to declutter using, excuse me, a really holistic method that incorporates body, mind, spirit, and can be helpful when applying to, a bunch of different areas of our lives. Not, I think a lot of times we think about decluttering of, helping with organization and productivity, and it certainly does. And there are also lots of other ways that getting in touch with our belongings and our environment and our home spaces can help, including supporting recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about supporting recovery.
Mhm.
One of the questions that came in was, how can you tell if a belonging is supportive towards your recovery or not supportive?
That's a really good question. And one of the things that a person can do is just sitting with the belonging. And I know, um, if we bring in a little bit of mindfulness and kind of tuning in with ourselves, and some folks may be really clear about what that means, and other folks may be like, I don't really know what she's talking about. What we do sometimes when we're trying to declutter and sitting with the belongings, we just tend to go through things really quickly. And when I work with people, I encourage people to really slow down. And so that might start with just getting an object and holding it in your hands and maybe just taking a couple of deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
Just going, okay, how am I feeling in this moment? And what comes up for me when I sit with this belonging? Do I, when I look at it, when I'm holding it, does it bring up some good feelings for me? Do I feel maybe triggered in a way when I'm sitting with it? And so just starting to get a sense from that kind of inner knowing. And you can also tune in with, what memories are associated with this object. Is this something that was directly related to using substances? Is
Mm-hmm.
it something that's related to maybe a close supportive friendship? Or, is it something from, somebody who's a support in your recovery? So those are all things that can have an impact on
Mm-hmm.
how a belonging can impact your environment and impact your own energy. Does
Yeah.
that make sense, Adina?
It does make sense. It does make sense. So, really, just sitting with the belonging and seeing where you are energy wise
Mm-hmm.
um, is really good. And, guys, by the way, if you're seeing us live or seeing one of us live, know that Michael is also here. We just can't seem to bring her up on camera. So.
Tech stuff, I tell ya.
So if you have a question, just put it in the comments box, and I feel like we should be able to get that at least. So, um, okay. So I'm guessing then if something is detrimental to our recovery, we'll start to feel a very uneasy feeling, or maybe you could talk about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it may depend on, where a person is in their recovery. Anytime where we are in a change process, sometimes that initial change is really uncomfortable. It can be confusing because there can be something so familiar about the old way of being, of using. And so we may be connected with an object that's been associated with comfort and familiarity that isn't actually supportive to the changes that a person is trying to make. So it's important to have that awareness, and it can be helpful maybe to talk with a friend, or if a person's in treatment for recovery or has a drug and alcohol counselor, that could be helpful too, to get an outside perspective and just be able to have a sounding board to explore if there's
Mm.
particular belongings that it's like, oh, I don't know, is this actually helping me or could it be hindering me?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yes, I like bringing other people in and asking them questions. So, does this belong? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's go to another question here. If someone's entire home is cluttered, how do they get started with decluttering in a way that will help the recovery but not lead them to those feelings of overwhelm? And you talked a little bit about this in the podcast. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And so I think it's important to start small.
Mm-hmm.
With a project like home decluttering, especially if there's clutter and excess throughout the entire home, it can feel like, oh my gosh, I've got this huge process that I have to do, this whole project. I've got to declutter my whole home, and that can, for anyone, bring a real flood of emotions. Um, oh, there we go. I wasn't seeing the live indicator anymore, but then it just flashed back on. Anyway, um, so it can be overwhelming for anyone. And so it can be really helpful to start small. And I would suggest, starting in a place in your home that um, is maybe a place that you can see fairly often and is a place that, wow, like if this area were less cluttered. So for me, when the surface of my desk is clear, that tends to help me feel clear inside.
Mm.
When the kitchen island is clear, that helps me to feel less stressed and anxious. And so starting with, and I have a podcast episode about purifying. This is this holistic decluttering method that I use. It's called purifying. And so I talk about decluttering and purifying in a micro area.
Okay.
And so when we start really small like that, that can also help us to start to gain some confidence in the process. Like, okay, I can do this. I can do this one drawer. I can do this one surface. And then um, that can also help us to, as we get one area that's feeling more clear, we can feel confident, then we can start to move on to other areas. I would also recommend, if you have a lot of belongings that are associated with using. So maybe, if there was alcohol use and there was maybe a lot of partying or something, maybe not going to the clothes closet for and decluttering all the clothing that you used to wear the very first thing, unless it feels really important to
Mm-hmm.
address those things and you get to trust yourself in the process. You may want to start with something that isn't quite as connected to using specifically, um, just again to build that confidence and then be able to come into um, those places with a little bit more clarity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the whole don't go through your closet. If it's going to be too overwhelming for you, start small.
Hmm.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since we're talking about closets, another question is if someone is storing some things related to using in their closet or other storage space, but they're out of sight. Um, so yeah, they don't have to see it every day. Maybe they're stuck in a back of their desk somewhere or whatever. Yeah, how what would you do that? What would you do for that? Drug paraphernalia or anything? Yeah.
And again, I think this is a really personal question. Um, because again, depending on where someone is in their process and in their recovery, having those things tucked away in the closet for the time being may be just fine.
Okay.
There can be that in a process of change, just putting those things away may be the exact right step for a person in their recovery at that time. And then there may come a time later where it's like, all right, I really need to cut ties with this. So just because something is out of sight and maybe we're not thinking about it consciously, if we are still in possession of it, there is still an energetic connection. And so
Hmm.
that there could be a time that comes that a person can say, all right, it's time to get that box out and it's time to truly let that go. And again, it's just such a personal thing. And so I don't like to set a lot of hard and fast rules because
Yeah.
we don't want to create resistance and like, you have to get rid of everything associated with using or that you associate with your recovery, simply because again creating that resistance and additional rules can create more. of this kind of sense of constriction, where what we're trying to do is create a sense of openness and spaciousness and safety in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I think that that can be a really good um, question to bring up if there's something, if because there's a big difference between storing something temporarily and hiding something.
Mm.
There's a difference between I'm just not ready to let go of this and I'm hanging on to it secretly for dear life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that can be an indicator of maybe just where a person is in their process. And so being able to talk about that with a counselor or somebody who can be a sounding board can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I hold on to everything for dear life, so that makes a lot of sense for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, okay. So this question sort of piggybacks off the last one. What if you have belongings that you love that spark joy? That's got to be a reference to Marie Kondo. Am I saying her name
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Maybe they remind them of good times with friends and family, but they also remind them of using. Could these things impact their recovery? So it's like these are great memories, but also, I wasn't in my best frame of mind. I was, a little chaotic. Yeah. So what do you do in that situation?
Yeah. And again, something that I think can be interesting about our belongings is our relationship to them can change over time. So, we might have photographs, I'm not sure exactly what types of belongings these might be, but they could be photographs, they could be paraphernalia. I mean, they could be all sorts of things. A beer bottle that's turned um, into a flower vase or something. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And so, just because we're in possession of something that represents a time in our life that we are choosing to move away from some of those activities and behaviors doesn't automatically mean that it has to have a negative effect on one's recovery. It really does depend on the meaning
Mm-hmm.
that we bring to the belonging. And so, we might, at one time have said, oh, yeah, this belonging really. It makes me want to use, like, even though I have good memories of this, they're memories that I don't want to have again. And having this belonging in my life, I know deep within me, if I keep be reminding myself of these times through the memories associated with this belonging, I know I'm going to want to relapse. I know I'm going to want to use.
So
And
yeah,
so,
I was just gonna
go ahead.
say, kind of like romanticizing it a little
Hmm.
bit.
Yeah. And, I was talking with a colleague this week about this topic, and she was saying sometimes it can be good to have a belonging that might represent some of the negative aspects of using so that it can serve as that reminder of where a person doesn't want to go again.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I think
Hmm.
it's the key to all of this in how we're using our belongings to create a safe space, a really positive and um, just kind of secure space for recovery really comes down to being very honest with
Hmm.
what do these belongings mean to me and how are they truthfully impacting my recovery.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 Just being really honest and
Hmm.
asking yourself those questions. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Sort of looking at the questions. Did we get all of them? Um.
Oh, I think there's one about an overall better energy in the home.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay. How can a person get an overall better energy in their home if they sense their home energy is stuck and stagnant and they feel like it's holding them back?
So certainly starting the decluttering or purification process, it just starts to shake up energy. And you can notice this, if we go back to the example of the surface of the desk, if your papers are just kind of strewn everywhere, I mean, lots of us have had this experience, and then we start to straighten up and we put the recycling stuff where it belongs and we file stuff and we straighten up the contents of the desk, you can, for me and for a lot of people, there's this kind of palpable shift. Like it
Hmm.
feels different. And that's true of any type of tidying up, if you will. And when we start to get into those drawers and closets and other places where the clutter and excess has accumulated, because when things accumulate, it tends to create this stagnation in energy. And
Mm-hmm.
so once we start to um, shake that up, we start to move those things around, we start to make really proactive and healthy decisions about what we choose to have in our life,
Mm-hmm.
then that is starting to shift the energy of the home. Now, with that being said, for some folks, that may be just an overwhelming task to begin with. And one of the things we can do, and in my work, I work a lot with energy. And so, something you can do is just, sitting in your home or even sitting outside your home, depending on the type of home that you have, and just sending good energy to
Mm.
the whole home. Or you can envision, a healing light just coming down and surrounding the whole home, infusing everything, infusing all of the belongings, including things that might be associated with using and the path to recovery. Um, it can be really just a beautiful thing because we are then we're visualizing and using that power of visualization to shift the energy of the home, but we're also bringing, when we talk about like a healing light, we're bringing a sense of acceptance. And so then we can be accepting of the clutter that's there
Mm.
and the excess that's there and the things that may represent times in our lives that we're not proud of or that we don't want to repeat. And as we're doing that with our belongings externally, we can also be sending that same healing light within. And so we can be healing those parts of ourselves that we associate with things that we don't feel great about. And that can have a
Mm.
tremendous impact on our relationship with our home and the energy of the home in general. And it can also start to help us have a friendlier attitude toward doing some decluttering and purifying.
Yeah, I really love the imagery of the warming light sort of encompassing the whole home and having it be, just very accepting and, sort of giving yourself self compassion. Um, yeah. You wouldn't be you if you didn't have to go through what you
Right.
went through. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for the questions. And we will put this up on YouTube as well. And I'm so sad that no one got to see you.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, hopefully, if you do this again with other podcast guests, you'll have an easier time with the tech. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's frustrating when the tech doesn't agree.
I know it is frustrating.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so Michael, I'm going to just put your contact information in the comment section,
Great.
just so people can get in touch with you. And then, of course, you are on episode 53 as well. So they
Right.
could head over to adinasilvestri.com/episode 53 and
Very
find
good.
you there. So, okay, well, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I could. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.